They say that the best camera is the one that you have with you. And pretty much everyone nowadays has one of these. Not necessarily an iPhone, but a cell phone. And with modern cell phones, we could take some pretty awesome pictures. You just don't know how. Let me show you. Now, one of the things, especially with toy photography, so I'm going to be specifically talking about miniature photography and toy photography, and by extension, you can actually use these tips and tricks for normal photography also, right? But this is what I'm going to be speaking about. With photography and toy photography, what we want to do and what we try to do as toy photographers is immerse the viewer in the world of the toys. All right, so what we're trying to do is basically get the viewer to feel as if the toys are real. And one easy way to do this is to get yourself down to the level of the toys. You want to bring the toys face into focus, and I'll show you here. This is one that you see a lot of, I should say, amateur toy photographers doing. Now, I'm not saying this angle is wrong, but what I'm saying though is that you get a different vibe when you take a picture like this versus a picture like this. In this photo, you actually have the action figure or the toy or the character as the main focus. You feel as if you're there in the world, immersed in this world of this action figure. All right, so that's first point. Get down to the level of the figure and the subject, I should say. And you can see it for yourself, right? One, you feel like you're immersed in the subject. The next one, you actually feel like, all right, I'm just watching it from the side, right? All right, second point. Resist the temptation to zoom. Yeah, zoom. Those zoom. Treat your phone as if it was a fixed focal length lens. And what I mean by that is that with zooms, you know, you zoom in and you get closer to the subject, right? You're 35 to 135. You zoom in and you can get close up to your subject, right? But with camera lenses and with the phone, camera lenses, you have a whole different problem, and I can get into that in the next video. But with your phone, when you actually do that and you're zooming in, you decrease the quality of your photo. And then the photo ends up glitchy, it ends up having a lot of noise in it, is a little bit softer of an image, so you don't get that sharp as tack image that you would like to get if it is that we were to actually move the camera forward, the phone camera forward to a point. So I'll give you an example. This is with it completely zoomed in and trying to like zoom in versus when I actually go and take the picture, and you could crop in post. You could actually crop your picture after in post. All right, so that's a good key point. Next thing I would say is that a lot of toys, so for instance, this car here, right? These cars and whatnot, they kind of flat to the ground, right? So if you have your ground, let's use this as a ground, you have a toy and it's flat to the ground. In fact, let me get a car. Let me get something. All right. I'll get something I have right here and accessible, right? So the Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur is pretty much on the ground, right? We could take a picture of him from up above, but when we actually want to try to create Bulbasaur into the subject of the photo, one of the things that I tend to do, if you look at it, right, look at where your phone camera is positioned, right? So if I were to put my phone camera down, you have an angle. You see that angle there, right? That will create a kind of image of like, you know, he's above. So if I hold my phone like this, versus, watch this trick, right? Turn your phone over. You turn your phone over, if you notice, the lens now is on the same plane as the action figure. So now, right, I'm going to show you all this image with the phone up, right? This is this one. See the difference, right? So with this, flipping your phone over, you actually get down to the level of your characters, and again, we helping to immerse the viewer into the your image, essentially, right? Other thing I would tell you all is to look at your backgrounds, right? You're going to look at how you take the picture, what's in your background. We're going to try to create a toy photo with an interesting foreground. You want your image there, you have your actual subject, and a background. And with toy photography, it's kind of cool because you can cheat your backgrounds. You don't necessarily have to have the best. You could take a toy photo pretty much anywhere. And most of my toy photography, I do right there on my desk, right? You're just going to create an interesting background on something that is actually vaguely interesting. And for the backgrounds, honestly, you could use pretty much anything. Now, I have a lot of props, and I've collected these props over time. And even I'm not skilled yet to build my own diorama, but I've actually collected props over time, and you have the use of dioramas. So let me get an example of a diorama for you. Pause for a course. There we go. All right. So this is a piece of a diorama that a friend built for me, and I can't tell you the exact material, I believe is foam, but he basically built this for me, and I use this a lot as my floor, but sometimes I even prop it up and it could be used as a background. Now the whole thing is, your diorama may not necessarily be in focus, right? And again, I'll bit into toy photography here, but it's still useful for your phone. Create an interesting background, and in fact sometimes you could go outside. Now one of my favorite things to do is find like an area with like wild grass and like bush essentially, and take my pictures there and try to create a natural environment for my figures depending on what it is. So pay attention to your backgrounds and your foregrounds that you're going to use, and even the flooring, as in what you use as your base. It could be a very interesting addition to your toy photography and your action figure photography. The other things that you need to pay attention to and I'll be cognizant about is lighting. All right, now you don't have to have all the fancy lighting. In fact, when I first started toy photography, I used torch lights and like, you know, reflectors, like, and when I say reflectors, I mean like a piece of paper. All right, I use things like torch lights. I use even my phone light, but I mean obviously if you're going to take pictures with your phone, you're not going to use phone light. But yeah, use any kind of source of external lighting if you're taking something in a low light area, or sunlight. Sunlight works brilliantly. And resist the temptation to use flash. Honest to God, it's just reflect off of your figure, and it's just get this kind of shiny, this sheen on your figure that gives it the plastic look and completely destroys the image or the intent to try to make your action figures look real. Don't use flash. Instead, use other external light sources that are not going to shine directly into your character and on your characters. And I'll show you. This is the Lego minifigure when you just use flash. It bounces off the figure and you just get this unnatural sheen. Versus if you actually don't use flash and you have these external lights. And what I would pay attention to with action figures with sunlight is that some of them, probably not him, but some of them, when they're in the sunlight, maybe Bulbasaur, they tend to get a little glossy and they tend to get the reflection off of them. Now, when you get a gloss and a reflection off of it, it could be distracting, and that's when people realize that is a action figure, is a toy, versus, you know, the character itself. So pay attention to your light sources, how it reflects off your character. You're probably going to want to position the character in a way that it doesn't reflect off of the character and get like that plastic sheen. One thing that I have done is that I've used like matte spray paints and kind of spray my characters and let them dry, etc. I mean, obviously this is prep from before, but you spray your characters so that you have more of a matte appearance and you don't get this plasticky effect. But that's all as things to consider in the future. So pay attention to your light sources, pay attention to the reflections on your toys, because you could end up having this glossy reflection that would give you the kind of fake toy finish. One interesting thing that I found and I like to do, so for instance with this car photo here, this was taken in the middle of Gulf City, like on one of the tables. Literally, I took it on a table. You had the reflection, you had the lighting in the background, and this is just phone photography. This is with zero editing. All right, zero editing. I was just having some fun in the mall with my son. So something to consider. Use a reflective surface. Sometimes having that reflective surface could, depending on the toy and the action figure, especially I find like with the model cars, the 1/64 scale model cars, Hot Wheels, you know, Hot Wheels Matchbox cars, it makes some awesome pictures, right? Yeah, so pay attention to your lighting, pay attention to the shadows, pay attention to the reflection on the characters. You can use special effects, but I feel like special effects and natural special effects, things like snow and fog and all, like, you know, fire, etc., it should be used appropriately. It's not every single picture you're going to have like an explosion in the background and smoke in the background just to make it look cool. You want a picture, a photo, and your special effects to kind of match the photo, match your mood, match exactly what you are trying to portray, and have a story. All right, a lot of the times when I am doing toy photos, in my head, I may not actually post it and I may not actually tell you what's going on in my head. I have like an entire story made up in the background. Why is Bulbasaur in the middle of the bush? Why is he covered in smoke? Why he have a set of smoke and fireworks and fire in the background? I create an entire story in my head, and that storyline helps your photo to become cohesive. So that's something you could try to do. Sometimes I even do little sketches of exactly what I want. Not always I do this, but sometimes I do little sketches of what I hope my photo to look like and what I want to achieve. And from there, that's how I achieve my pictures. So when you take a picture now, you have your raw picture, you could actually do editing on your phone. On your phone, you don't have to pay, no paid apps or anything. One of the most powerful apps I use is an app called Snapseed. Snapseed is free. You can do a lot of edits in it. But pay attention to how you're doing your edits, because you don't want to over edit your picture at the same time. I mean, of course, that could be the look you're going for, and that depends on the toy and the action figure and all that you're taking. But that's a whole different ball game to get into. I hope this was useful, and hey, go ahead and take some pictures. Laters.